I can only go off my family tree. I've had two lots of grandparents, obviously, either being born 1912 or 1920s. The sets of like grandparents have either had a 58-year marriage or even 40 years of marriage, love. They've still had to come down to an actual agreement of how to discipline a child. Three of my grandparents did not pass the maths and English, and one of them did, right? And in that, you still have to come to an agreement how to discipline. Nobody was obviously thick or stupid. I just know in my generation, with a mild degree overtake, a severe dyslexia, and education going out the roof, is that you've still got obviously family members saying you're obviously lacking of intelligence. The trouble is, once you start an actual curse against the mother, against the actual child, is going to make it very, very hard to obviously mend. What you should be concentrating on is what's come available in putting something in place to discipline your child, not to actually curse people, because when you curse people, you're putting the mother and child against, and then the child automatically thinks you're the actual problem. Now, I've had like this with being brought up with Charlotte as well as Nadine, right? You're all trying to black name it and basically curse me. The bottom line is the more you curse, the harder it's going to be to obviously mend any form of relationship, in the fact of when they have a child and basically like helping them when they have a child, and even to be actual grandparents. There's no point in going around thinking that you are better and I can obviously discipline children like, better than others. That's not the case. And intelligence shouldn't really obviously come into it. You had grandparents that were born in 1912 and 1920s. They had 58 years of marriage as well as 40 odd years of marriage. They still had to come to an agreement how to discipline a child. There were some sets of grandparents that didn't obviously pass the maths and English. Nobody was obviously thick and stupid. There was more respect given to my grandparents than what you've done with me. And yet, before I passed my maths and English, I could have had the same intelligence as them. And when you've put it out there, to be honest, I've gained more intelligence. And if I'm obviously supporting somebody's work, then yes, I'm coming at the same intelligence as my kids. So there's no point going back in time to where I was at school. That's not going to obviously give you a meter reading. The meter reading is the fact they wanted to clear a recession and pandemic. They wanted to put the maths and English to clear the recession and pandemic, right? And they wanted people, the maths and English level 2s to get back to obviously employment. So all this in the fact of putting a curse on somebody just because you've not obviously gained 3 levels of education is basically cursing the mother and child against it, and the child's not even going to respect its mother, right? There's no point obviously arguing and making obviously challenges, and even to the point of, say, any of my children obviously knocking about with people that are really influencing them, saying I'm the bad card, you've got a bad mother, you're doing this and that and what have you. The bottom line is you're obviously cursing a child against its mother, and it's not going to revive itself. It's not the fact of obviously myself obviously giving up, but there's a state of the thing that, you can get intuition levels, instinctive levels at the GCSE, not just 3 levels of education, and you had no right to turn my child obviously against myself, right? So in this, you've been an absolute fool. Right, it's not obviously like disciplining anything, is it? You know what I mean? They put things in place to discipline children, and children have got to be cooperative and cooperate to obviously discipline. If you don't cooperate, then to be honest, you're the person that's not cooperating. And unfortunately, some people get taken into foster care. They get passed with obviously different people because they're not behaving themselves. Because along the line, what you've done is you've cursed a mother against the child, right? And by saying you're the bad card and doing this, that and that, no, that won't do. You either take the fun, you accept discipline, right? There's no smacking about it. The smacking was obviously like in the past, or whatever they used to obviously discipline children with. But I have to say, when you're obviously discussing like 3 levels of education and intelligence, right? Some of your grandparents that were obviously born 1912 as well as 1920s would have obviously had a 58-year marriage and a 40-year marriage. They would have had to have an agreement to come down the fact of the way to discipline. And, it's like saying, did my parents obviously call my grandparents thick and stupid? Then don't do the same to me. Thank you.